going to speak to you today from my experience in food and produce, primarily working with Produce Marketing Australia, PMA, and doing some work in New Zealand. I'm not a fruit expert, I'm not a produce expert, so I'm going to talk generally about innovation and how industries change for success. So when you think about things and you see people either in the newspaper or on TV that are incredibly successful, or even in the street of the town where you see someone who's far more successful than you are, you always consider, why are they successful? What's the secret that they have that can help me? So I want to share two secrets with you today and then talk about innovation. The first secret to successful businesses, and we've now researched over 100 of them, is they just have to be in the right place at the right time. It's more to do with timing than you think. When you think of Steve Jobs at Apple and launching an iPhone, was it the fact that he launched the iPhone, or was it the fact that the phones went and everyone was buying phones at that particular time? Or Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook, was it the fact that he did Facebook, or was everyone getting on the internet? Right now is the absolutely perfect time for fresh produce to become the biggest growing industry in Australia. When you look at what's happening in Asia and the growth of the middle classes, you have got an untapped potential because we're the only people that can grow cherries and deliver them fresh to China. And now the middle classes in China have the money to buy them. It's not a commodity product anymore. This graph here shows you the rise of the middle class in Asia and in China and India. There are hundreds of millions of people in China and India that are far wealthier than anybody in this room. And they don't want to eat food that is manufactured in China and India anymore. They want to eat fresh food with provenance from somewhere that's different. That's somewhere that they know is safe. The first rule about being a successful organisation is you just got to be there at the right time. The second rule is you can't do it by yourself. If you don't do it as a community, you're going to get whooped. You will not be successful unless you work as a community in the world market. Forget the local market, because the world market's 10 times bigger than the local market. Unless you work as a community, forget it. This is the famous saying, and I think everyone would have heard this saying, you know, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Has anyone heard that one? Albert said that 70 years ago. What I say today is this one. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting the same results. And the reason why I say that is because the world is changing so fast that if you guys try to succeed by doing what you did yesterday, tomorrow, you will fail. If you think about what you were doing as a business 20 years ago compared to what you imagine you're going to have to do 20 years in the future, it is going to be completely different. We will still have, and I've seen them, these robotic things going around picking apples that check every apple with cameras to make sure the apple's absolutely perfect. So when you pick it, and if the apple's not perfect, you leave it on the tree, then pick it tomorrow. That sort of technology exists today that never existed 20 years ago. Can you imagine what we're going to be doing in 20 years' time? If you do what you do today, it's not going to be successful tomorrow. And so one of the key things that people just don't recognise is that 70% of Australia's top 100 companies since 1990 are no longer in Australia's top 100 companies. I know that Shepparton has gone through a huge change, and I know there are lots of issues with SPC, and I actually have done some work for SPC, and I'm very good friends with Coca-Cola, and we've worked with Coca-Cola, and I understand all the issues behind that. That's just normal business. In the last 20 years, 70% of our biggest companies have felt the same pain that you guys have felt. It's just what happens in business and change. This company was bankrupt and became the biggest company in the world in the last 20 years. The next company, has anyone heard of ResMed? They do the sleep mask things. My university lecturer, Peter Farrell, who taught me chemical engineering, I'm an engineer, chemical engineering, decided he didn't want to be a lecturer anymore, went and got a job in industry, saw an opportunity, borrowed $1 million from a mate, as you do, bought the intellectual property, and now he's a billionaire. And every single item is made in Western Sydney. You can do it. It can be done. It does take vision and leadership, etc. to do. So what does successful innovation look like? Peter made the point that he wants to make you more successful, and innovation is the most important thing, and this is the secret. I've studied innovation now for nearly 2 decades, and I've summarised it down into 3 slides. So this is the power of computing from 1900 to 2100, from a really, really small number on this side to a really, really big number up there. Have people heard of a thing called Moore's Law? The power of computers double every 18 months or the price halves every 18 months. It was invented by Gordon Moore in 1963, who was the managing director of Intel. He noticed it, said, geez, look at that, that's cute, and he called it, and it was named after him. It's been correct since 1963. And so when we go to the next one, you can see all the different computers over the 100 years from a really, really small number to a really, really big number, and you can see all the different types of computers starting off with the Apple II, etc., etc. How do they do it? And this is the secret. The secret is when they invent a new computer chip, they put it inside the computer that invents the next computer chip, that goes inside the computer that invents the next computer chip. The way you get exponential growth is by doing lots of little things right with a common vision. That's the secret to innovation success. Not doing big radical stuff and changing and risking everything. It's doing lots and lots of little things together right with one common goal. Here's the share price of Apple. That's the US dollars. There's 1993 when they were bankrupt through to 2011 or so when they were the most wealthy, biggest company in the world. What that guy did, and yes, he was smart, and yes, he was at the right time, common vision, and he worried about every little thing and got every little thing right for 20 years in a row. This is ResMed, Peter Farrell, 100% Australian, same story. This is the difference between iTunes and Amazon. Can you see that iTunes went exponential and Amazon didn't? Amazon has never made a profit in its whole life. Samsung's different, and Samsung is where you guys have to follow. And there's Apple. In October 2012, can you see that Samsung started growing while Apple started dropping? And we all know how it happened. They copied Apple. And remember when they got caught with the patent thing and had to pay Apple $250 million? The value of their company went up $2.5 billion because everybody knew that a Samsung was as good as an Apple because Samsung copied Apple. Whatever you do, copy people that are doing it better than you. Share, copy, help each other. Don't invent anything, it's too hard. Leave it to the smart scientists. That's what Samsung did. This, I know it's a famous Australian song and it's a country song and it's the formula for innovation. And when I say that to people, they go, yeah, but it's hard still. Yes, it is. But I prefer you to do something small and miss something small than miss something big. Don't bet the farm on innovation. There's 4 sectors to success for innovation. There's innovation 1.0, 2.0, 3.0 and innovation 0. Innovation 1.0 is brainstorming, right? Invented in 1953. Has anyone heard about brainstorming? I hate to tell you this, it just works. You get a bunch of smart people in a room to solve a problem, it just works, you have to do it. This guy is Innovation 2.0 in about 1980, 1990. He was reading a magazine as a teenager, and in this sciencey Nature magazine, it listed all the species on the planet, and it listed how efficient they were and how much food they ate to how far they went. True? That was it. He read it, it was cool, and had a league table, the most efficient and the least efficient. The most efficient species on the planet is this thing, which is the South American condor. And us humans are 3/4 of the way down the bottom, we're pretty hopeless. Okay? And everyone understands that. Except when a human being gets on a bicycle, we are the most efficient species on the planet. If you want to be a better leader and more successful, just don't work harder. Use tools, techniques, go to the training, learn for the leadership, which we're going to hear about in a second. That is what you have to do, not just work harder. 3.0 is my theory, and I'll share it with you in a second. But the next one, Innovation 0.0, is what you guys really have to grab. And it was written in 1918 by Charles Bean, who's the guy sitting in the centre of the front there. He was a war reporter in World War I. And in 1918 he wrote this: Australians did what they did in this war not by refusing to learn from other countries, but by going out and picking up the very best that other countries could give them. However, a lot came back. And they built this country. They learnt from other countries. They learnt leadership. They learnt mateship. They learnt going over the top. And if you guys want to be successful in your community, you've got to think like they thought. Because it's a battle. And if you don't win, someone else will win selling their fruit to China as compared to your fruit to China. It's a battle. And that's the key driver. Innovation 0.0 is leadership. I compared these two companies. That's their share price. And again, you can see what Apple did and you can see what Microsoft did. This is the amount of money they spent on research and development over the last 10 years, from 2000 to 2009. Look where Apple is and look where Microsoft is. If you are innovative, you don't need the money. Everyone says to me, I want to be innovative, but I haven't got any money. I want to change, but I can't afford it. The most innovative things occur when you haven't got the resources to do it. That's what Apple did. And that's the driving force. You don't have to have bucket loads of money. Now, I work with major corporations like Westpac and Coca-Cola and AMP, and they do have bucket loads of money, except they have to pay their shareholders, so they never invest as much money in innovation. If you want to be innovative, you don't need resources. Yes, you need some, but it's not a money game. It's a people game. It makes you successful in innovation.